Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Still with you and this edition of The Breakfast Show. And of course, Egypt is hosting the 9th session of the UN Convention Against Corruption, which is running from December the 13th till the 17th. And to shed more light on this very important event, we're delighted to be joined over the telephone by our correspondent, Now TV international correspondent, Hany Farag. Hany, a very good afternoon, very good morning rather to you.
Good morning, Yanji. Good morning, all of you.
Thank you very much, Hany. First, could you tell us a bit more about the conference and how important it is that Egypt is hosting it?
Yes, we are waiting now in Sharm el-Sheikh in less than 1 hour, the opening of the 9th session of the Conference of the State Parties to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, process 9 in Sharm el-Sheikh, which is holding in Egypt from 13 until 17 December 2021. It is, of course, under the auspices of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. First, let me show how, in some scenes, the preparation for this event. Yesterday, Governor of South Sinai, Khalid Souda, visited Sharm el-Sheikh to follow up the preparation for hosting the 9th session of this conference. The government inspected also the process by which trying always to make Sharm el-Sheikh more and more beautiful, and maintenance works on the Salam Road, or Peace Road, and the Sharm el-Sheikh. The government inspected also the work of raising.
Hany, could you move a bit, because your voice is actually not that clear? Maybe you need better signal. Could you move a bit from your current location?
Yes, yes. Is it more clear or no?
Yes, it's a bit better. Thank you, Hany.
Is it better than?
Yes, carry on, please.
To answer your question about the importance of this conference, this conference is a part of series of international conferences which confirms the world's confidence in Egypt and its capabilities in the organization of these conferences, and also because of the great role in combating corruption, which is a major tool developing in society as it impedes the development process within any country. Experts said that the United Nations Anti-Corruption Conference is very important, as it will discuss issues of corruption, information exchange, combating money laundering, and taking legal measures in the international level related to corruption, which is a phenomenon that haunts the world.
Yes, Hany.
It's also considered one of the most important international conferences that brings together member states, parliamentarians, the international, regional, and the non-governmental organizations, civil society, and the private sector to discuss anti-corruption matters. According to experts also, it will review the UN Convention Against Corruption, which is the only legally binding universal anti-corruption instrument.
Yes.
Also, participants will discuss means to prevent and reduce corruption, enhance international cooperation to better confront all forms of corruption, and discuss the ways to recover from the pandemic and how to move forward following the first UN General Assembly Special Session Against Corruption, UN GAS, that was held in June. Let me tell you that the conference will touch also various relevant topics, including preventing corruption through education and through women's role in promoting integrity, the stolen asset recovery initiative, anti-corruption efforts in Africa, the Arab anti-corruption and the integrity network, and the challenges and opportunities offered by ICTs and the digitalization to fight corruption, and the urban governance initiatives intended to reduce corruption.
Yes, indeed. Hany, let me ask you about some of the preparations that have taken place in order to host such an international conference in Sharm el-Sheikh, and tell us a bit more about some of the participants. We have news that there will be 5 heads of state and over 144 countries and lots of dignitaries, over 2,000 dignitaries attending.
Yes, just like I said now, there is a lot of preparations, and security measures were taken on the ground in order to prepare the right climate to hold this conference. Let me tell you also that this conference will be an opportunity to present the Egyptian experience and the successes it has achieved on the national strategy in this and second phases before the signatories to the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. And because Egypt is trusted and given attention by all parties, more than 120 countries and more than 1,000 people from different countries of the world are participating in Sharm el-Sheikh conference. Egypt, to make this important point, Egypt will take for 2 years the presidency of this conference, and every 2 years the conference will review also what member states have done in implementing the United Nations Convention to combat corruption, implementation mechanisms, means of prevention and drying up the sources of corruption, and ways to enhance international cooperation to combat this phenomenon.
Right, Hany?
Yes.
Right, so tell us a bit more about the agenda of the conference. The conference is being held over the next 4 days, from the 13th till the 17th of December. Could you tell us a bit about some of the highlights of the agenda?
Yes, just like I said also, there will be a lot of questions about corruption and means to make efficient combat against this corruption. Dr. Ghadawali, under Secretary General of the United Nations and the Executive Director of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, has said that on the economic cost, or have indicates that there is a lot of losses has been made on the economic cost of cross-border corruption. That cross-border corruption entails a huge economic cost, as some estimations indicate that the cost of corruption amounts to more than $3 trillion annually. A huge cost that eats into the account of criminals and the corrupt, instead of investing in development and public services. Dr. Ghadawali, also the Under-Secretary General of the United Nations, pointed out that the African continent, unfortunately, is the most prominent model in this field in corruption, despite the fact that it's most in need of exploiting all its wealth and resources, noting that the annual cost of corruption in Africa amounts to more than $88 billion annually, which is equal, in fact, to the total development support and the foreign direct investment on the level of the continent, and the equivalent to 50% of the existing deficit to finance the Sustainable Development Goals.
Right. Right, Hany, let's talk a bit about how the participants are expecting the conference to help in boosting international cooperation, especially in the field of fighting corruption.
Yes. Hello?
Yes, Hany, I can hear you clearly.
Yes. I think, according to some declarations made by Dr. Ghadawali, there is a comprehensive international framework represented in the International Anti-Corruption Agreement, which is the agreement signed by 187 countries. And despite the existence of this agreement, there's still a huge drain on resources that prevents people from benefiting from their wealth and achieving their legitimate aspirations for development.
Yes.
So what we are hoping via this gathering is some more efficient recommendations and mechanisms on the ground in order to get that target, how to break down the corruption and the finance, this climate financing corruption.
Indeed. Right. Finally, how do you see the participants approaching the idea that combating corruption will allow their nations to achieve development, Hany?
Yes, exactly. This conference will be an opportunity
Yes.
to more than 1,000 prominent personalities in order to discuss during the coming session many related topics such as the role of women in promoting integrity, the
Yes.
challenges and the opportunities provided by digitalization and digitization
Yes.
helps in reducing corruption, initiatives to recover stolen funds, efforts to combat corruption in Africa and in all over the world. This is a great opportunity to review
Yes.
how the mechanism that has been taken on the ground can be more and more effective in a way that not only combating the corruption, but also prepare a climate and environment which is very good for investment, direct
And development.
investment,
Yes.
for growth, for economic growth.
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to thank you very, very much, our correspondent, now TV correspondent, Hany Farag. Thank you so much, Hany, for your time and all your updates. And I'm sure we'll be joining you throughout the next 4 days or so for further updates. And I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. With this, we wrap up today's edition of The Breakfast Show. We do hope you have enjoyed it. Join us again tomorrow morning for another edition. Till that time, you're in the company of myself, Angie Meher, as well as my colleague, Amal Mukhtar. Many thanks for watching.